Vinny the Weasel Capello returned to the old country. The Sicilian meetings. The first villa sat high above the sea, its stone walls thick enough to keep secrets for generations. Vinny was led through a courtyard of lemon trees and into a long room where the shutters were half closed against the afternoon light. 3 men waited. The oldest had hands like weathered olive wood and eyes that had watched governments rise and fall. They did not rush. Wine was poured deep, almost black Nero d'Avola. Bread and oil were set out. No one spoke of business until the second bottle was open. "You come from Boston," the oldest finally said. "A city that still remembers the old names but has grown loud. We have heard of the Velvet Lounge. We have heard of the trouble with the detective who does not frighten easily, and we have heard that you know when to pull back." Vinny answered without excuses. He spoke of the protection push that had gone too far, of Cheater's Tavern, of the quiet heat that followed. He did not name James Brogan. He did not need to. The old men already knew. On the second night, a woman joined them. She was introduced only as Alina. She poured wine, listened more than she spoke, and asked one question that cut deeper than the others. "When the old rules no longer protect you, what do you become?" Vinny looked at her for a long moment. Useful or dead? She smiled for the first time. The second journey to Sicily, months later, went deeper. This time the meetings moved from villa to villa. Vinny was taken to a house in the hills where the only sound at night was the wind in the olive trees. He was shown ledgers that never touched a bank. He was introduced to men who controlled quiet channels between Palermo, Montreal, and New York. He was given small responsibilities, messages, introductions, the movement of things that could not be spoken of in open rooms. One evening, the oldest of the elders sat alone with him on a terrace that looked toward the sea. "Lucky Luciano understood the structure," the man said. "He built something that could survive loud men and quiet ones. John Gotti is loud. Vito Rizzuto is quieter. Both have their place. You will learn which place is yours." He refilled Vinny's glass. "There is a future for a man who can stand in Boston and still hear Sicily, but that future requires patience, and silence, and the understanding that some promotions are never announced in newspapers." Vinny left Sicily the second time carrying no papers of importance. He carried something heavier, a place in a map that stretched further than Southie. New York and Montreal. The return route was never direct. In New York the air still crackled with the legend of John Gotti. The Sparks Steakhouse killing was only a few years behind them, and the Teflon Don's name was still spoken with a mixture of admiration and caution. Vinny did not meet Gotti. He was not meant to. Instead he sat in back rooms with men who measured every word. They asked about Boston. They asked about the Canadian roots. They asked, carefully, whether the Weasel from the Velvet Lounge could be trusted with more than street-level work. Vinny gave them what they needed and nothing extra. He left the city with new phone numbers and a clearer sense of how loud the American side had become. Montreal was different. The city felt colder, more contained. Vito Rizzuto's name carried a different weight, less flash, more permanence. Vinny met a soft-spoken man in a restaurant overlooking the river. The conversation moved slowly, the way real business did. They spoke of pipelines, of construction, of the quiet understanding that Montreal remained the northern door for those who knew how to knock properly. "You have been measured in Sicily," the man said. "That is not a small thing. The ones who return from the old country changed are the ones who last. The ones who return the same usually do not last long." Vinny left Montreal with the sense that the map had grown larger again. Boston, the promotion shadow. When Vinny finally stepped back into the Velvet Lounge, the place looked unchanged. The same booth, the same stage, the same faces waiting for signals. But Vinny Capello had changed. He called the crew together the first night. Little Eddie stood at the front, still carrying the faint memory of the broken nose from the cheater's mistake. "We are not going back to the old way," Vinny said. His voice was quieter than before, but it carried further. No more pushing places that bring the wrong kind of heat. Cheater stays off limits. The detective stays off limits unless I say otherwise. We make money the quiet way now, the long way. He did not explain the Sicilian meetings. He did not mention the elders or the woman with the dark eyes or the map that now included Montreal and New York in a different light. He simply adjusted the way the crew moved. Protection was collected more carefully. The girls were told to keep the high rollers happy but not to press. Certain shipments began to move through channels that did not touch the old Southie routes. Vinny spent more nights alone in the back booth, staring at the stage without seeing it, turning over the words he had heard on that Sicilian terrace. The future is not in the streets. The future is in the spaces between the streets. Little Eddie noticed the change first. "Boss seems heavier," he told one of the others, "like he's listening to something we can't hear." Vinny let them wonder. He had been given a place in a larger structure. The price of that place was patience, silence, and the understanding that Boston was now only one piece of a longer game. He still drank whiskey. He still watched the girls dance. But when he looked at the city through the club's front windows, he no longer saw only Southie and the combat zone. He saw a map that stretched back to the olive groves and forward into whatever the old men in Sicily had decided the future should look like. And somewhere in that future, the Weasel from Boston had been given a larger shadow to grow into.